Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's Monday, December 8th at a little after 4. And with Bitcoin hovering a little over 90,000, actually pushing 91 right now, I thought it would be a good time to talk specifically about the 4-year cycle and lay out why I think that it's complete garbage, or at least is irrelevant in this case. And it comes from two different places, one from a fundamental point of view, and the other from an actual technical point of view. So let's start with the technical because the fundamental is pretty damn obvious. And when I say that, we'll talk about why later. But from a technical point of view, compare this cycle to the previous two to understand the math. So the first thing is in 2017, the bull phase of that cycle, we saw effectively a 20x rise off of the bottom, being around 1,000. And that cycle was crazy. And when it fell, it dropped 75%. So you can look at that. It obviously didn't fall. It managed to hold on to significant amounts of its gains even after it fell. In the 21 cycle, the 21 year, it went from, if you take and smooth out the bottom that came out of the pandemic, the craziness of that one Sunday. If you smooth it out, its steady state bottom before the rally was really around 6,000. It went to over 60 and a 10x. So the 21 or 17 was 20x, 21 was 10x. And then when it fell, depending on how you look at it, if you take the FTX crap out and you kind of say it kind of was stabilized afterwards in the 20s, you would say that it fell 65%. But it's reasonable to say that was a similar fall. So half the upside, but a similar-ish size fall. Now, in 2025, however, the upside is really, I mean, depending on how you measure it, you could call it from the 24, rally of the summer, pre-election, pre-ETFs. That's the most aggressive way you could look at it. It would be a 5 times rally, right? And people have used this to say, so 20 to 10 to 5. Then, of course, the next cycle will be 2.5. The next cycle will be 1.5 or 1.25, and you could get to there. But you understand that it was a significantly less of a rally. If you only look at this year, it's essentially down this year. And if you look at it all priced in gold in all of these cycles, it's not even comparable. There was no bull cycle in this cycle. So you could say the cycle's dead because there was no bull cycle. The cycle is dying because the rally wasn't significant. And even then, the fall from the top is around 36%. So with half of the upside, arguably symmetrically, we're sort of at the same point on the downside. Now, could it fall more? Sure, of course, anything can happen, but it doesn't seem likely given the magnitude of the upside. But there's one point I wanted to make here is if you believe in the 4-year cycle theory and you believe that the amplitude of the rises and falls is going to decrease over time, then you cannot get to a price of 500,000 or a million Bitcoin, $1 million per Bitcoin. Just can't get there because if 126 is the biggest rise, then the next one will be even smaller and smaller and smaller. And effectively, you literally never approach the digital gold thesis. Now, I'm not saying the digital gold thesis is guaranteed. What I'm saying is there are many people who say, I believe in the 4-year cycle, yet also claim that they're long-term bullish on Bitcoin. And the two are mutually incompatible. Because if you believe in a decreasing amplitude 4-year cycle, then we never get to that long-term bull case or even close to it. So it's worth understanding that. But the other thing is, from a fundamental point of view, it actually tells a much rosier story. Because the reason for having cycles in the early days in particular, and in 17 as well, is as the halving took significant amount of block reward away from miners, there was a worry, a very real worry. The FUD of miners today is negligible by comparison, but a very real worry that there was not going to be enough block rewards to sustain miners, and it would be left in such concentrated hands as to cause a 51% attack, which would destroy the network. And so after the halving, there was nervousness and watching of the hash rate. And within around 6 months of the halving, it effectively turned out that people said, oh, wait a minute, the network is alive and well and continued to grow. As I said, or I didn't say, but I could say, in 17, during the bull market, the network grew 4x. During 21, the network doubled. During the 25, it's grown between 3 and 4x, depending on how you measure it. So basically, the network growth has been more or less the same, halving over halving, regardless of it, while the price has done what I've just suggested. Now, ask yourself the question, if in fact in previous halving cycles we got explosive parabolic runs after it became clear that the network was going to continue to work, what happens when people realize that the network is continuing to grow despite the sluggish price action that we've had in this particular quote cycle? And my answer is we'll probably will get a parabolic run. Will it be as big as other ones? Who knows? My guess is in the macro environment we're in, which everyone is a little bit afraid of pretty much everything, where fear and greed indices are at fear, not just for crypto, but also for other assets. Maybe not, but it does feel a fairly strong case why that would be a good thing. And if you understand that that's how the Bitcoin networks works, and you understand that liquidity looks like it's about to start flowing in again in order to prevent things like rising bankruptcies, delinquencies in credit cards, multiple other signals in the economy, and a Federal Reserve that is about to turn over to be going from a hawkish just to inflation concerned Federal Reserve to one flat out focused on growth. I see the 4-year cycle being far more being irrelevant compared to all of those macro things. But in any case, I'll leave these things out there for thoughts. I would welcome a debate with people about this. And I'm reaching out to Mark Yesko to see if we can actually have a conversation, because he's the one who talks about 4-year cycles and is also a Bitcoin bull. And in his case, I know it's genuine. So I'm going to leave it right there. Enjoy the rest of your week. I will obviously be on Spaces. I'll see people in Crypto Town Hall tomorrow. Take care.